I'd like to focus on some of the conclusion that Winnie, in her very well-focused and interesting paper, came to. At one point, she talks about the impossibility of locating and defining religion. She says secular courts and legislators have no way of distinguishing between people of faith and people not of faith. And she concludes near the end of her paper, she says, "My own view is that in the US case, law should ignore religion, regulating all activity, whether or not religious, through laws of universal application, without an effort to protect or discriminate among religions. Religious actors and communities should receive no special legal treatment, positive or negative, because they are religious. US religion is too fragmented and too vociferous to admit of regulation." Now, it seems to me that one can draw a lot of very radical implications from this, and I haven't got time to spell them all out. But I would like to say that one of the implications is that the Constitution would need to be completely reconstructed, because the Constitution is predicated on what turns out to be, from what you're saying, and I would agree with this, and I've published many arguments along these lines myself over the last 20 years, to be an empty rhetorical distinction between religion and the non-religious secular. It's actually it's a rhetorical distinction, and it's completely empty of any essential content. And what goes into one category or the other is fundamentally arbitrary, and this is the conclusion that you came to from your paper. You know, from this point, we have the whole question of what the secular state amounts to. What is a secular practice? And I think that this can be seen in a number of ways. I mean, I'm trying to follow the logic, the radical logic that flows from this position. Secular politics, economics, law, they could all be, given the arbitrary classification, these could all be seen as religious practices. What we're doing here now could be seen as a religious practice. Capitalism, it's a collective act of faith. Private property, the nation state. What is the nation state? It's a metaphysical entity. It's a collective act of imagination in which we have faith. Markets. This also, you know, the idea of free markets. I mean, you know, do we really believe in free markets? Well, some people do. They propagate these beliefs. There's also a question of conversion here, and I'm coming to the truncated end of what I want to say. Conversion, you know, the US and the British and the French have been converting whole peoples to belief in free markets, to belief in private property, to belief in human individuals. These are all metaphysical, rhetorical constructions, and in principle no different from religious ones. So what I'm saying is that we're actually going back to completely first principles, because we have no clear distinctions at all. And I'm wondering, what are we going to do about this? Because there is a sort of reductio ad absurdum here, which I am also involved in. We have to ask ourselves, are there any clear first principles? Can we even say that we believe in human nature? So I would just like to leave my point there and maybe ask Winnie to say what she thinks about that.
I do think, I mean, like you, I've been, and reading your work as well, I mean, that is where we find ourselves at first principles, and I think this is where we should find ourselves, because I think the real challenge is in some ways to sort of scientific understandings of the human person, and those scientific understandings of the human person leave all the rest of this in their wake, and I think we have a huge problem of reconstruction, perhaps. I don't know, I don't have a solution to that.
No.
But I think it's a moment of redescription. I do think that in many discussions about these issues, there's a rush to a new normative solution, or that is always an old normative solution because there aren't any new ones, and that rush to a new normative solution is preventing the anxiety, preventing for reasons of anxiety and for real reasons of people actually dying as a result, that we are not spending the time on first principles that need to be done, that needs to be spent.
Yeah.